Hi, this is Ron Ovitt, Mr. Change Agent, and I'm glad you could join us today. Today I want to talk about an exciting program we have, a 12-week program that's called Change Your Habits and Crush Your Cravings. It's part of our program here in Empower for Living. Empower for Living has 4 different parts. It has your change your habits, right? And so you'll see, if you go to our website, you'll see that our blogs and videos, they'll be divided this way. Change your habits. But we also have a second part, crush your cravings. And let me explain why that is. Not many programs treat addictions like a habit. Of course, it's not just a habit, but it's similar. A habit starts down here because there's an urge, right? There's a stimulus and a cue, a trigger, and of course addictions get triggered. But what we find is that as we start with a habit, that as we go and the urge, the intensity of the urge goes up, as it increases, it's more of a craving, right? And this craving is where the addiction starts setting in. And it's, we'll get into things like dopamine in this program and what that means and how all that works. But as you go from an urge, from a habit to a craving, as that increases, so does the time that it takes to work on this. It's not easy to overcome an addiction, does it? I'm a recovery coach. I've been trained, and most of my emphasis has always been on relapse prevention. And so this program is just full of relapse prevention techniques and ideas. And because it takes time, it takes knowledge, it takes skill, it takes experience. And I'll add another one. It takes fellowship. It takes other people to help us. We don't do this by ourselves. We change emotionally in that as we relate to other people. As people are happy to be with us, we see that we can go ahead and change. And that's the third part of our program. The third part of our program is increasing our emotional maturity. Increasing our emotional maturity. And that's important because what I've found, and it didn't take long to find out, is that in dealing with people in addictions, that really they weren't any different than my own experience with anxiety and depression and shame, that really there's an emotional root that we medicate to regulate our emotions. And so a lot of our program, you'll find, is dealing with childhood trauma, dealing with how do we deal with emotion. And so emotional maturity. And just because we're older doesn't mean we're mature. And it doesn't mean that we're immature in every area. You can be very mature in handling anger, for example, and yet be very immature when it comes to things that make you sad, right? That crush you, right? And so we need areas where we need to increase our maturity. And then the last one is deepen our spirituality. And I just finished a video on Jesus is the Real Change Agent, which is a real good spiritual-based program. If you're interested in that, I encourage you to go to empowerforliving.com and look that up. And so deepening our spirituality. These are the 4 roots of our program, the 4 parts of our program. And this one that we're going to talk about today really incorporates all these, but it really deals with changing your habits and crushing your cravings. Our program, most of our programs here are based on a 9-part blueprint, I call, habit blueprint. And that habit blueprint includes a whole layer of 3 elements that have to do with relapse prevention. And this program goes through that whole gamut. This change your habits, crush your cravings for addictions. We start off with, why are you here? Why are you reading this? And I really wrote this for a lot of people that start off in programs. Some people go to a 28-day program, a 3-month program, maybe they're in a halfway house, but it takes time. And so why are you here? Are you mandated? Are you coming because someone else forced you to? Are you coming because you feel a certain need? It's important to know why. And then we talk about, why do people relapse? What happens? Why do people keep relapsing? And we talk about a very significant thing here. What is the change process? There's a process to change. And what is that process? So we can see how we're doing. And we talk about what is a habit. What is a habit? The different elements of the habit. And we talk about what is a craving. What's the difference between the two? And how does the brain get involved with that? How does a craving work? And what can we do about it? Do you know you can have power over your cravings? You don't have to be a slave to your cravings for the rest of your life here. And we talk about the change blueprint. Why we have 9 elements in there is because when we have a habit and a craving, it comes to us with everything it's got. I mean, it's an army, man. It comes with people, places, things, right? It comes with all kinds of neuronal pathways that are triggering us all the time. And here we come with maybe 1 or 2 little tricks, right, to overcome it. It doesn't work. You would never go to war against 10,000 people with 20 of you. Now that might work in the movies, right? But it doesn't work in real life. And likewise here, we put in 9 different ways of treating an addiction that will, if you put them into practice, they'll definitely help you change and stay that way. Here again, we're trying to prevent relapse. And so we talk about the pitfalls. What are some of the pitfalls when we try to change? We go over the blueprint. We talk about the habit formula. What is the formula of a habit? You know, how do you use the different elements to really make changes? And we talk about trigger management. That's huge. That's huge. So many people fail because they don't manage the triggers that constantly trigger them. You know, it's not just what you drink, it's where you drink, who you drink it with, when you drink, it's what you feel when you drink, what you feel after you drink, what you're thinking before you drink, what you think after you drink. All those things need to be managed. And we talk about that. And we talk about the brain and the cravings. We talk about the neurotransmitters. Now, I'm not trying to make you into a neuroscientist. This is not going to be a college level course here. But you'll learn about some of the basic neurotransmitters, some of the brain waves. And you can do this. And it's very important because there's hope. You see, there's hope today. And that's the thing. When you start to understand how this works, you'll know. You'll start saying, I can do this. I get it. This is why this is happening. This is what I need to do to change. And then we'll talk about a real key to addiction, and that is how do we handle this continuous, unavoidable stress? Because that's what keeps triggering us. It's in our body. It's sort of like being at a stoplight and you have one foot on the brake and the other on the gas. And that engine is humming all the time. I know when I was in my anxiety for years, this would constantly be on. It'd be like I'd walk in a room and there's a predator. Always on, hypervigilant, always on alert. And that's this continuous, unavoidable stress, and it plays havoc on us emotionally, in our mind, in our body, and it causes triggers to happen. And we can overcome that. You can overcome that. And then we're going to talk about how does health come into the picture? What do we do about our health? And not just our physical health, but our nutritional health, our mental health, and our emotional health. We'll talk about mind skills, how we can use all these different skills that we developed into a program of like breathing, relaxing, meditation, visualization, all these different things that can really give you the ability to overcome this addiction that you've been wrestling with. And then there's emotional relearning, the real kingpin of what we do here. We want to relearn emotionally the truth about who we are. We want to know the truth of how loved we are, how lovable we are. We want to know that. You know, it took me years. I was preaching to people for years about how much God loved them. I would do it with tears in my eyes, and I believed it with all my heart. I believed that God loved me, and yet when I was in counseling, when I was at some of my worst, I remember a counselor saying, Ron, do you believe God loves you? And I remember with tears going down my cheeks, my lips quivering, I said, no. And I had that posture of shame. You know what that's like? And then my wife was sitting next to me and asked me, said, do you believe your wife loves you? And I turned, I looked, and tears were just flowing down her face. And I remember going, no. Now, I knew God loved me, and I knew my wife loved me. What was I really saying? I was saying I felt totally and utterly unloved. lovable. Have you ever felt that way? It took me a long time before I could really say God loved me unconditionally. I couldn't say it. I felt like a hammer was going to drop on me. But with time and with the things that we talk about in this program, I was able to rebuild myself emotionally until I finally wrestled with that and relearned emotionally. See, that's the thing. I had to go back to memories and relearn emotionally that I am lovable. And I want to help you do the same thing. And we'll do that through the final part of the program too as well, and that is the spirituality. How do we get into the spirituality that will really make a difference? Well, I hope I've wet your whistle a little bit and have encouraged you to think about this program. It's Change Your Habits, Crush Your Cravings for Addiction. I invite you to go to empowerforliving.com, look it up. Look at maybe start off with one of our webinars if you want. But I look forward to helping you. Feel free to email me if you want. It's on the website. Look at some of our blogs, and I'll look forward to working with you. This is Ron Ovitt, Mr. Change Agent. See you next time.